I've been completely remaking the Toy Story 2 video game from scratch in Unreal Engine 5, and in just about 40 days, I've gone from this to this. Last month, I listed off all these amazing features I was going to have complete by this episode, and golly, will you be surprised because I didn't do any of that. But trust me, I did something even cooler. This episode explains how I unexpectedly went from a solo developer to a creative director and a producer, and what that means. First, let's talk about the new 3D art, as I know that is what everyone is excited to see. As of recording this, we have all but a couple of assets left for Andy's room. We brought on Kyle to be our art lead at this point, but he also specializes in character modeling. However, he really wanted to tackle some of the props that we needed as well, so he started on Andy's room. We talked about the art direction, where we settled on something that would be a blend of Spiral Reignited Trilogy and the original game. We really wanted the visual style to feel nostalgic and familiar to players. Also, we agreed very early on that we absolutely do not want to go with a realistic visual aesthetic. But let's go through the scene and check out the room in detail. Alright, here we are at runtime playing Toy Story 2 in Unreal Engine 5. We're going to go one by one on each asset and kind of look at them so we can get a really good look. First off, we're going to look at the bank because this is a really simple asset. It's basically just a cardboard box. Kyle did actually hand draw this, which is like really cool to kind of see that come alive. I know it's just a cube, but that's like really cool. Next, we're actually going to look at this desk. This was actually the first asset that Kyle made. We went through several iterations. This is where we learned like how to work with the scale and the textures and everything, and how to make an asset look good at this large of a size. I love the shape of these drawers on the desk. And then of course he also added some, what's that wood called? Corrugate? I don't remember for sure. There's also this lamp here. It's a pretty simple asset, but the original game is supposed to block you from getting over to the crib, which you can get to just fine from here. I don't think it's really an issue. It doesn't break anything. We've actually made several different books and board games based off of the Toy Story IP. So this is Buzz Lightyear Star Command. That was the TV show, and this is an actual book from that time, although the spine is different, I believe. There's this crayon box and crayon drawing up here that you can walk over just fine and stuff. It's pretty short, so Buzz just steps up on it. This looks fantastic. Let's go ahead and push this game off here. So Woody's Boots and Ladders. Obviously a plan of snakes and ladders. Okay, I pushed that off, and we've got the Misadventures of Steamboat Willie. This was an actual cover, I believe, as well, but it was all black and white, so we kind of made it a little bit more interesting and fun to look at. Here's a Hot Wheels car right there. Kyle's made 2 of these Hot Wheel cars, but one of them is not completely finished yet. And then there's these 2 placeholder board games. So these are not finished yet, but he did get everything but the texture done on them. There's a few books. There's like Whimsy and the 100 Acre Wood, where you can see the Winnie the Pooh team. There's Odyssey in Neverland, and the Hitchhiker's Guide to Childhood Nostalgia by TT Games, who were the original developers of this game, by the way. We also got Journey to the Emerald Railroad, Oswald and the Lucky Rabbit. And there's also this Alice Down the Rabbit Hole book, which has a really cool reflective color. And then down here, we've also got a basket with the Pixar ball in it. All right, let's look at this right here. Now, this was actually originally exported from the Kingdom Hearts 3 game. We've updated the mesh to be higher quality, but also more efficient. And we've also changed the bedding a little bit. So the stitching is a lot more defined. This is still the original texture from Kingdom Hearts 3, by the way, and it still looks fantastic. So yeah, they did really good on that. I do also want to mention that we are investigating mesh deformation. So when you walk on this, it'd be cool if these sink in just a little bit, but we're still exploring that. If you're curious, these cubes are actually the hint boxes. Those have not been recreated yet. There's also this table. There's actually 2 more kind of similar, but with different handles and slightly different dimensions. That is in the living room and in the hallway. They're all pretty similar, so Kyle just did all of these all at once. I love the look of this wood texture. I think it fits perfectly for what we're going for. And then the dresser. This is pretty close to the shape of the original game and even in the Toy Story movie, but I just love the shape of this. It's got like a really like whimsy look. I love the shape of the drawers, how it's kind of curved slightly. The clothes you can actually walk on. And if you look at the side of them down here, you can kind of see like it's just one mesh, but I think overall it really sells the effect and looks really good. So I think we're doing good with that. Now, I actually love this globe, and there's a very specific reason why. We added it to our interaction system, and you can actually spin it with your spin attack. There's actually a suggestion from someone in the Discord as well, so I was glad to take their feedback on this, and thank you so much. We'd love to add more more small interactions like this just to have more for the player to do. So Kyle's working on this right now. Basically, our plan is we're going to have the microphone toy from the original Toy Story 1. He's going to be sitting up here, and either his plug or his microphone will be sitting on the dresser, and his cord will go up here, and you can climb up and down in that. And that'll really make it a lot more sense as to what you're climbing. It doesn't really make sense for you to climb to the ceiling on this random pole. But we also have this top shelf here. I think it looks really good in general. Again, I love this dark wood texture. I think it looks really good with that blue and yellow and orange. There's also these like really cool like wall mounts for the wall shelf that I think look great. And this is actually a pretty low poly model, and so it's nice to stay efficient. All right, and now let's take a look at this crib. So this is much more close to how the crib looked in the Toy Story 1 movie. Also, I do want to note that this crib is obviously not in his room in Toy Story 2. It was in his room in Toy Story 1. Again, you see this like corrugate wood hanging out underneath. You can actually walk underneath it. So I may put something pretty interesting down here. So I do specifically want to shout out Dor, who I mentioned in the last episode. He actually made the original 3D model of this. And then Kyle took it, and then he kind of remeshed it and retextured it to fit our style a little bit better. We also have these targets where you can shoot it, and it will fall. Obviously, there's also the rug here. This is actually exactly how it looked in Toy Story 2 and 3, where it's actually like one piece that's wrapped around several times. That's really interesting. It wasn't like that in Toy Story 1, so that's just kind of a weird quirk. And lastly, let's point out the room. So the room was completely remodeled as well and retextured. So as you can see, the molding was changed. The textures were obviously set much higher quality. The color is a lot more dynamic, I think, and looks a lot better. I think in the original movie, it's actually a very light blue. We decided to darken it just a little bit just to make the things that are colorful pop a lot more. And there we go. That's Andy's room. Let me know if y'all have any feedback for this room. I'd love to hear what y'all think. There was a learning process for understanding how to get the art looking great at this scale, where textures could easily look fuzzy, and working with compression to make sure textures are as lossless as possible. We are also working on the kitchen at the moment too, but I'm not quite ready to show that off yet, as it is still pretty deep in the iteration phase. By the way, I do just want to mention that if you like what I do, feel free to join my Patreon, where I give exclusive updates to the project, videos such as this one released 2 days early, and even exclusive videos. I actually have an exclusive video coming out next week on Patreon, where I discuss a game and a level from that game that I think is great for studying level design in general. Now, in the last episode, I had let it be known that I was having issues with Buzz's animations. Many of you suggested I retarget the animations, which is a great idea, but it wasn't working because the bones of the new Buzz model actually had some issues and were too hard to work with. We brought on an animator named Illia, who completely re-rigged Buzz's bone structure. If you don't know, the way you animate a character and even objects is by inserting bones into the mesh. This is actually called the rig or skeleton. So if you were animating a chest, it would have just 2 bones, where one rotates up to actually open the chest. On a character though, it is much more complex than that, where it resembles a human bone structure. Each joint on the body gets a new bone. This means on one hand there are 16 bones, 3 for each digit and 1 for the wrist. Then each bone is told how to move each frame, creating an animation. That's a very basic breakdown of animations, but trust me, there's a lot more to it than that. I didn't even talk about skin weights or anything like that. Now that I've given a basic breakdown of how skeletal meshes work, let's talk about the animations. We started by getting a test animation of Buzz made. I then created a video that showed from multiple angles about 80% of the animations we would need for Buzz. This was a valuable asset for Illia because it showed a starting point for creating updated versions of the original game's animations. I will note that there are a couple that we changed for one reason or another, but most of them are inspired directly by the Toy Story 2 video game. And there are also just a couple of animations left to do. But first, let's go through the list and show the updated animations. First, we have 3 idle animations, 1 standard idle, and then 2 random idles. By the way, the original game had an idle animation where he just puts his hands on his hips. We decided to swap that out with an animation where Buzz looks at the readings on his arm compartment. Then, we created the walk and run animations. For these, we created something called a blend space. Basically, the way this works is we can drop animations on this chart, and I can set the X values of the chart to track movement speed. Depending on what these values are for my movement, it will blend between these animations smoothly. So this allows for a jog animation, even though we technically don't have an animation for that, as well as making a smooth takeoff for starting movement. Now for that blend space, we only use the X axis. However, I also created a blend space for strafing when we are using the targeting mode. This uses the X and Y axis for the velocity either sideways or forwards and backwards. Like with the other blend space, this allows us to have a diagonal strafe animation without needing to actually create that by hand. Now we do have more blend space animation still, but let's just go through the list and show everything off at this point. Here are all the other animations that Buzz currently has. Jump, double jump, falling, ground pound start, ground pound land, climb ledge, climb rope up, climb rope down, climb idle, zip line, swinging, edge detection forwards and backwards, and push object. When we were animating Buzz, we had a goal to keep Buzz pretty bouncy and athletic, so we tried to add that to any past animations that didn't have that kind of behavior. Now we do have more animations done that aren't implemented yet, which are the shooting animations. I haven't had time to set these up in Engine, however here they are. This is the targeting aim animation, targeting shoot animation, and the free movement shoot animation. By the way, are you curious why we would do it differently depending on the mode? This is going to blow your mind. We discovered that Buzz cannot actually reach the fire button on his arm without clipping into his body. And this is in the actual movies too. Now we want to see him push his button, specifically when zoomed in at least. But if we did it during the free movement, you could actually see the clipping. As far as what is left for animations, there's the celebration, death, grind, spin, and charge spin attack. By the way, the grind animation will be more similar to Ratchet & Clank grinding, but he'll be riding on a Hot Wheels car on a track for the grinds. That will come at a later time. And actually, Kyle has actually started work on the Hot Wheels model that will be grinded, but it isn't quite done yet. Okay, so I spent the last several minutes talking about what everyone else has done, but what have I done this month? Well, the first thing I've done is be the creative director. However, I also have to give a clear direction on what is needed for each asset. This could be as simple as giving feedback on an animation. These collaborators are experts, so I take any suggestions they have very seriously. I try to empower the team to create what they believe will make the game better, and then I try to provide valuable feedback and support them to ensure that it all blends together in a single cohesive experience. Wow, that sounded really HR. I didn't write it like that, but that's how it came out. However, the really time-consuming thing that I've done this month is be the producer of the project and get a workflow pipeline set up for the team to work effectively.
Making a game, even a small one, is a huge undertaking. It's a project, and that means you will need to become a project manager to see it through.
Let me explain what this means. To start, I updated the Trello board to ensure I have every single art asset listed for the first level as a task. Then I invited the team to the board as collaborators, which allowed me to assign tasks to each team member. I also upload the original model onto the Trello card directly, so that the artist can have that for scale and reference. Once the artist makes the new asset, they load a render in Maya of the object and upload it to the Trello task card as a screenshot. They also move the card to the art submitted for integration in Final Pass Task Group. This lets me know that they have uploaded the model and its texture to our drive. By the way, I know some of you will ask why I don't just give them access to the project through the source control server, and that is because I currently use Perforce for myself, but it can get very expensive with more users, so I'm currently exploring different source control options. I really like Plastic, but they are technically owned by Unity now, so I'm not sure if that's the best route or not. Anyways, then I import the asset to the project, update the compression settings, and the collider if it needs adjusted. And I also make sure the material is set up correctly. Finally, I replaced the old asset with the new asset. I do have to make sure the tag is set to mantle if I want to allow climbing the ledge of it. I also have to update the lighting channel of the object so that Buzz's glow in the dark mode will light the object up. Now, before I get to talking about programming work I've done, I also want to mention that I'm about to pass 10,000 subscribers. So shortly after that milestone is passed, I plan on doing a live stream playing through the first level in its current state, as well as answering questions y'all may have during that. If you're interested, just make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you don't miss that. Okay, enough calls to action. So I did do a little bit of new programming work this month, but most of it was actually updating the gameplay related to the animations. For example, I reworked the code for the ledge climbing, since the climb is done with animations now, instead of just lerping the player's position. I also updated the swing bars. A lot of people ask why I was moving and rotating Buzz with code instead of animations, and that was because I tried to mitigate as much animation work as possible, since I didn't expect any help on this project with animations actually. I also created the ledge detection system once I got the animation in. It was pretty simple actually. While I'm in the idle state, I shoot a ray trace straight down, both in front and behind the player at a certain distance. If you don't remember, a ray trace or a ray cast is an invisible line that checks for collision. So if the ray cast doesn't detect ground on those ray traces, but Buzz is in his idle state, then that means that Buzz must be standing on an edge. I then just play the correct animations for if the ledge is in front or behind the player. I do let the ray traces go a bit further than Buzz's feet, as I don't want him to do this animation on small ledges, for example. And that was all the work from the last month that we can show at the current moment. If you want, you can get a hold of me by leaving a comment below. I'll read every single one. You can also join the Toy Story 2 Speedrunning Discord channel, which has a link in the description. Anyways, that's it for this month, and y'all take care now. Alright, let's just get some footage of the swing bar now. Wait, what? Hold on. Wait, did I go through that? Alright, let me get back up there and check this. This is crazy. What's going on? What happened? Okay, yeah, so I am just going through these bars. Why is this happening? It's so weird. And then anytime I jump on that combo pole, it sends me back to the swing bar. What's going on?